And we're joined here by Len Saunders, who is an immigration lawyer and he works from Bellingham in the States, and he is joining us here today to answer some of the questions that we have.
Len, thanks for coming in.
No problem.
You're based in Blaine, right?
Actually, in Blaine, yes.
Oh, Blaine.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
Right over the border.
About 3 blocks south.
Right. So what's the most common thing you hear from folks? What's the biggest problem people have when it comes to crossing the border?
With regards to marijuana,
Yes.
or in general?
No, let's just go with marijuana.
Is being asked whether they've used it in the past.
Now, is that just a question? Like, because I cross the border quite a bit going down south, I don't think I've ever been asked that.
I find from my experience, it's not somebody who is older, maybe in
Hey,
their
hey.
30s, 40s, or 50s, someone
Perhaps,
younger,
yes.
late teens, early 20s,
Yes.
who maybe is driving a van, a Volkswagen van, or there's
So
some
really
kind of
stereotypical.
Stereotyping.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly, yes.
And so they'll ask you what? They'll just go, hey, have you ever, like, so I'm coming in, have you ever smoked marijuana? It seems like a weird question to be asking.
It usually starts as a very simple question like that, and if the person answers yes, then they're sent inside the building, or if they're already inside the building, they'll be put into secondary to a small room and then questioned extensively about any past marijuana use.
Okay, so wait a sec. So sorry. So they're not asking if you have any on you. They're asking you if you've ever
tried
smoked.
it.
Well, if you have some on you,
That's a different problem,
that's
which I
different.
get. Right,
Yes.
but they're not asking you that. They're asking if you've ever smoked any. So you're going there, I might have smoked it 3 weeks ago. And
Or
if I-
20 years ago.
Right, and if I say yes, all of a sudden they're bringing me in.
Exactly.
And okay, and then what happens? Yeah.
What's the...
So usually there's an interrogation for anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. There's a very detailed sworn statement because you have to admit it under oath, sign it, be advised of it's an illegal substance, and then the person's denied entry and told basically they're banned for life.
And so that's when they come to you,
So
right?
then I
Once
get the
they've
phone
said
calls
they're banned.
from the person, and I say to them, you will need a waiver for the rest of your life. And unfortunately, waivers are not permanent. The minimum is a year, even though I quite frequently see 6 months in situations like marijuana admission. The maximum is 5 years. So I tell people who call me, this may be a lifetime relationship with me because you will need a waiver for the rest of your life.
And this is also, it's time consuming to put in your application, and it also costs money every time? Or how
Government
does that work?
filing fees at the border when you submit it, $585 US. Legal fees if you hire an attorney, you're looking at hundreds if not thousands of dollars. And then once it gets submitted, it takes about 6 months. It takes me about a month or 2 to put an application together, and then another roughly 6 months to get a decision. Typically, someone gets a 1-year waiver, so I tell them, now you can start using your waiver, but we have to start working on your renewal immediately.
Wow.
It all starts because they ask you a question.
Exactly.
And a question that really you're answering honestly because it doesn't seem like a big deal. Do you have to answer their questions?
Well, you don't, and most people answer it because they think, well, it's legal in Washington State, what's the problem? So I tell people you are under no obligation to answer that question.
What should you say to them then?
Yeah.
What's the right thing to say?
Well, I can't tell people what to say.
Right.
Because I can't, put words in their mouth or
Right.
tell them to lie. But what I can say is, if you do not answer that question, the worst thing that can happen is you get denied entry. If you admit that you have smoked marijuana, it's a lifetime ban.
So it's a 1 day, they turn you around at the border then, or it's the possibility of the rest of your life
Dealing with it.
dealing with that, or
Exactly.
coming across and doing waivers.
And usually it's a very innocent question, so people don't think, people don't think that they are going to be barred. They just think, I'll answer the question,
Right.
I'll be on my way, and no problem. When they get denied entry, they're shocked. I deal with this at least once or twice a week.
And people,
These are very common.
They feel like authority, right?
Sure,
that they
but
should be
you
answering
said,
honestly too.
You said it's Washington State where it's legal. The federal government runs the border.
Exactly.
And there's your difference, your disconnect.
That's
Yeah.
where it gets confusing.
Right.
And especially now when it becomes legal in Canada, you're going to have it legal on the north side of the border, on the south side of the border, at least in Washington State. But that little line that divides those two jurisdictions, it is illegal, and in my opinion, for a long time will stay illegal.
How many people, how common is this? How often are you getting called on
So
this?
I started practicing in Blaine 15 years ago. I would see maybe 1 or 2 cases a year. When they legalized marijuana in Washington State about 5 years ago, I then saw maybe 1 or 2 cases a month. So it started to uptick. Lately, it's at least 1 or 2 a week, if not more.
What happens if someone has a medical card? Say it's like an actual doctor, this is their medicine. What if they're trying to cross?
So I've seen cases where people have been given by the federal government of Canada a license to grow marijuana for their own medicinal purposes, and they've had their waivers taken away, or they've been denied entry and told they need a waiver.
Even though it's what's
Even though
keeping
they've
them
been
going day
granted
to day?
it. Yes.
Wow.
How hard is it to navigate the legal system when it's like two different legal systems intertwined?
Well, that's the problem.
You've got Canada and the US, plus you've got Washington State and the feds.
And that's where it gets confusing. And so when people get denied entry and told they're banned for life, the only one who benefits is me. I understand if someone has a criminal conviction for a past crime in Canada, theft, burglary, something like that. I understand those people, they need waivers. That's the law. But when someone is asked who's never been charged or convicted of any kind of criminal offenses and gets asked this question, when it's legal in Washington State and soon to be legal in Canada, it's a colossal waste of time and money.
You know, we used to tell people, and you used to hear people say, if you got pulled over by one of those spot checks or ride programs at Christmas time on the roads, even if you've had one beer, just tell them you had no beer. As soon as you said, even if you just had one beer, all of a sudden they're pulling you out of the car. It almost seems, and again, you can't tell people to lie, but it almost seems like the best thing to do is go no. Because really, they have no way of knowing anyway.
And a lot of people, I believe, say that.
What happens if you get caught, though?
Yeah, but how?
Well, say they find out later, maybe you try to go through again and you actually have a medical
Do they
card.
keep track of stuff at the border? We always think as probably stupid people that when you cross over, you say something, they put it in your file, like there's a file on you.
If you're sent into secondary, quite often they will make notes. So let's say you're asked that question and you won't answer it. They'll probably deny you entry for not being cooperative. And they will make a note and they'll probably put a lookout on you. But chances are the next officer on a different day at a different port of entry will not ask you that. Not every officer takes it upon themselves to diligently enforce federal immigration laws. They have the right to, but most officers don't.
When they scan your passport, what do they see? Would those notes pop up or what exactly? Because that's always something everyone's always wondering. What do they see?
If a lookout has been put on you by a previous denied entry or by a previous officer, then it's an automatic secondary. So you will be sent inside. So I've never seen the screen because I've never worked at the border, but from my experience, there'll be a secondary inspection lookout. So you go inside and some officers will read it and say, be on your way. Other officers will take it upon themselves maybe to question you again. My experience is most people who don't answer that question affirmatively, whether they've smoked marijuana, will not be sent into secondary and interrogated a second time.
Is it harder to get a waiver for someone who's got a criminal record or for someone who admitted that they might have smoked 8 years ago?
I've actually only had one waiver denied for someone who has admitted to smoking marijuana, and it happened on 4/20 this last year, which was kind of ironic. So we just refiled. So my experience is it is harder to get a waiver for a criminal conviction than a marijuana admission, but who knows, right? I'd never had one denied before, and I had one.
And what about like criminal records and marijuana charges? Because it's really interesting, once we do turn to a legalized country, how is that going to work with if someone had a marijuana charge, like and they have a criminal record with that?
Well, it's still a grounds of inadmissibility because it's a conviction unless it gets overturned by the federal government. I know Trudeau has talked a little bit about having some of those old convictions overturned, but all it takes is reason to believe. All an officer has to do, like if you have a past charge but not a conviction for marijuana possession or cultivation of marijuana, all it takes is an officer to make their own determination that there's a reason to believe that you're involved with drugs. So it doesn't take an admission, it does not take a conviction, it does not take anything more than reason to believe.
Too much control in the power of the officer at the border. The people that you help are your clients. As they're going through the process, you must hear, they must go, I can't believe this is all going on. They must really be, some of them must really be beside themselves of all the hoops they're jumping through now for absolutely nothing.
For being honest.
They all say
for
that.
honest, yeah.
And it's more of a money issue. A lot of people think it's a fee grab, that they're being asked so that the U.S. government can increase their revenues. And I said, I don't think so. I don't think it's a revenue grab, but it's a lot. A lot of my clients, when they're younger, they're in school, they're just starting out. And to come up with the filing fees and possibly the legal fees, it's a lot of money. So a lot of people hold off on either filing their initial waiver or renewal.
I can't imagine being surprised showing up at the border and going, oh, sorry, you can't.
Yeah, your big family
You
holiday.
yeah,
you
you're
got
on your
kids,
family, exactly, because of something that it is so crazy. Like, again, you're not caught doing anything. I get if you get caught doing something, you should know
I
better.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
But if you're not even,
I agree.
by being honest, they take advantage of their power in the position of
It is the
authority,
authority,
that you're
yeah.
going to go, okay, well, because we all get nervous at the border. We have nothing to hide, and you get panicked at the
Yeah,
border.
I agree.
It's like going through a roadblock and you're completely sober and you're like, oh, your heart's pounding.
I feel bad when I'm trying to, like, sneak in the pair of Nikes I bought. I don't want to declare them I'm terrified, let alone something else.
Totally.
Do we got any?
We do. We have some questions
Oh,
for
from
you
our
from
viewers?
the
Excellent.
viewers. So Connor asks, when you get a medical access card, you have to disclose all your personal information, including your driver's license number and plate. Is this information shared with the border?
The Americans have access to RCMP records, so past charges, convictions, but it's my understanding they have no access to Canadian driving records.
Okay.
That's good to know.
I got another question. Anthony asks, what might prompt a border guard to ask about cannabis use?
Profiling, younger, when
Right.
I'm at the port of entry helping clients, the people who are in those enforcement lines, they're always younger, they're wearing tie-dye shirts, they maybe have dreadlocks. You rarely see someone in a three-piece suit with a tie in that enforcement line. So a lot of it's, stereotyping someone younger who may be using marijuana recently or in the past few years.
Seems how old school that is. Like the whole movement. Some of the movement, as far as legalization, is really moving forward, and there's still some way back here that it's gateway, it's this, it's that, and they're the
Exactly.
same thing. Oh no, it wouldn't be the guy in the suit. It would only be the guy in dreadlocks,
I
which is
agree.
really like, who are you kidding?
Yep, I agree.
So we have another question here from Tyler. He asks, what's the difference between a waiver and a pardon?
So a pardon is for a criminal conviction in Canada, and a pardon is actually not recognized by U.S. immigration. So
Okay.
a waiver is to waive your inadmissibility to the U.S. So a waiver is a U.S. waiver. A pardon is for past Canadian criminal convictions.
So,
Sorry.
Okay. No, go ahead.
Well, I tell clients if you have a past criminal conviction for marijuana possession, there's no point getting a pardon because it's still in the system. The Americans
So
can
that's-
still see it through CPIC, through the
Right.
RCMP criminal databases.
Because a lot of people think that a pardon, that's what you hear mostly of. A
Right.
pardon, as soon as I get a pardon, everything's gone away, I'm fine,
still
I can
there.
travel.
It's still there.
That stuff seems to live forever.
It does.
Especially stuff at the border, stuff that we deal with our U.S. neighbors. Anything happens, it seems it lives forever.
I did a waiver once for a gentleman from Aldergrove who had a conviction from 1957.
Wow.
See, come on.
So over 60 years ago.
Oh, thank you so much, Len.
Len, thanks for
for
coming in.
joining
We
us.
really
Thank you very much for
appreciate it.
having me. Yeah.
Thank you so much.